year.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and I checked to make sure that we didn't have to come back to council to do it, but we didn't have to,
Yeah,
so we
well, that's
just did that last month.
Yeah, we knew we were going
Last
to.
month, yeah.
Okay,
Any repercussions, or is it pretty smooth?
I think everybody-
Nobody's
There was a few people that complained.
I get a little mad.
ready. Every time we see it on their bill.
Nah, I promise you, we don't do it again. We're good.
They didn't complain to me, so that's great. I like that.
okay, we'll go to old business, wood stove update.
Good afternoon. Betty Riley with South Central Oregon Economic Development District. And you have the handout version of my PowerPoint since I didn't feel like plugging my computer and everything over here too good. So just to give you a little bit of background, in 2013-15 legislatively adopted budget, regional solutions projects were funded and it included a $1.5 million allocation that was awarded to SCOAD on behalf of Klamath Falls and Town of Lakeview to run the wood stove changeout program. Now that program is actually a program that we initially started in 2007. We have been managing wood stove changeouts in 2010 or 11. I think we had a $1.2 million allocation through the ARA funding that was available through the U.S. Department of Energy. And during that program, we also covered what we called the Goose Lake Basin at that point in time. It wasn't just limited to the urban growth boundary, and also the community in the urban growth boundary in Klamath Falls. And so we've been doing this program for several years. The new program that we got the funding for included basically just because the justification was because of the both the non-attainment status in Klamath Falls and the fact that within Lakeview you are in a sustainment attainment area based on your PM 2.5 plan, which we put together here for air quality. The main reason for the air quality issues are open fireplaces and residential uncertified wood stoves. So we have, do not meet the standards for PM 2.5 based on the residential burning. It is not based on the industrial usage within either one of our communities. However, it impacts industrial use, which is why economic development is very interested in cleaning and keeping the air and improving our air quality. So also, we identified in our last program that weatherization was also an issue because a lot of the homes, especially here in Lakeview, had substandard weatherization, and so even improving the heating system didn't necessarily improve the quality for those homeowners. So there was a component in our program this last time that included up to, not to exceed 25% of the funds could be used for weatherization. So we were able to go in and change out from the non-certified wood stove and do some limited air weatherization type of improvements. We're also authorized with that fund to do electrical upgrades, because quite often putting in a new heating unit requires improved electricity into the homes, and so our program covers that also. So we basically started in 2016, basically we started in 2015 to design the program. We were told that because it was a $1.5 million allocation for this, we had to follow BOLI, which means that we had to, our vendors had to pay prevailing wage in the project. So we took about 3 months to meet and with all of the contractors. We provided a BOLI training for all of the vendors who were interested in the program, so that they were up to speed. We had 2 or 3 who had never basically had never paid prevailing wage before, so they had to learn the paperwork and all of that. So we provided that training to the vendors. We currently, we have 8 independent vendors, you know, that work the program. They had to basically submit a letter of interest, a copy of their insurance, and a copy of, you know, we had to research to make sure that they were not on any list of being debarred as part of the program criteria. So we do work with, and the program is set up so that the vendors are the ones that work with the homeowners. The homeowner chooses who they want to work with. They, you know, have a list of the ones that are approved, and they make the choice of both the system that they want to put into their home and the vendor that they use. So that that way it's not our choosing where we're not put in the middle of that. We do then have a form that the homeowner signs off of, and we pay the vendor once the project has been inspected and is complete. So we do pay the vendor directly that way. So the change-out program, again, it was for the removal and destruction of uncertified wood stoves. We have to verify that that old wood stove is taken out and destroyed. We can offer full or partial incentives for replacement, and the weatherization component. We also can use the funds to conduct audits, and so what we have is we went out for bid and we signed up with Bill Trentu, who has a inspection services. He goes in and he basically verifies that there's an uncertified wood stove in the home. He does a very low-level energy audit, looking at the home and what the, you know, what type of insulation it has and what the needs are for that home to verify that it is an eligible project. And then that report is submitted to Pam on my staff, and then we go out and the homeowner decides on who they want to work with, and then we issue a notice to proceed to their selected vendor. So that's kind of the process that we go through. And so we are also be eligible for the paperwork associated with it, which we have to keep quite a bit of paperwork and follow that. So the funding was split 50-50. So we are honoring that fact that half the funds have to be spent in Lakeview and half the funds have to be spent in Klamath Falls. I mean, that's our baseline. We have a 10% cap on what we can use for administration, and so we are at this point still, you know, underneath that cap. We are monitoring where we're at and staying within that 10% of expenditure on our end also. And then, and the eligible uses of it, we did put a cap on up to a certain amount. Like we initially we said up to $4,000 to change out to a pellet stove, $5,000 to put in a propane heating system here in this community. We've raised that cap somewhat. We've tried to give a little more flexibility. We do require that the homeowner, if they have a tax liability, that they have to pay the portion of what they can get back as a residential energy tax credit on their tax return as their contribution to the project. So we don't spend 100%. We're trying to leverage other funds. The homeowner gets that money back with their tax return at the end of the year, and so hopefully they are all filing for that tax credit on their tax returns. But if a homeowner does not have a tax liability, then we waive that requirement, and quite a few of our homeowners are low income, you know, do not have tax liability, and so that is the case. We can put in a pellet stove, a 93% efficient gas or propane furnace in the case of Lakeview, because you don't have the natural gas here. Electric heat pumps, freestanding gas or propane stoves, including open fireplace. We can put in propane into the fireplaces. And non-catalytic wood stoves, we can put in, you know, very energy efficient ones. So we can change a wood stove out with another wood stove that is very, we have a limited number that we can use, with the caveat that there's also a secondary heat source in the home that can be used on red days because of your requirement of no wood burning on red days. So the homeowner is given that information, signs a waiver recognizing that they cannot burn on red days. And then we can also then spend another 2,000 plus on fixing or improving their secondary heat source. So in some cases, they'll have an electric furnace that isn't working right, so we can go in and have someone repair, or we can put in a monitor into that home, or other types of secondary heat sources. So we're actually, and this is Lakeview only, so we've set aside a little bit more money to spend here in this community, recognizing the culture around people wanting to burn wood. So if they do put in a wood stove and replace their uncertified wood stove with another wood stove, they are required then to sign that waiver and to have a secondary heat source for their home. We've run into a couple complications, which I think came to you last time in substandard housing, not being able to really afford to upgrade what they had. We've been trying to work around that. We've communicated with the Oregon Housing Authority that has weatherization funds, but they're booked out 2 to 3 years at a time, so but they're on the list to be able to do some of those improvements, and so that's where we're at with that program. So as of February, or actually this was as of March 6th, which was when our last statistics were in, our reimbursement request was put in. We had expended basically all but around $60,000 in Klamath Falls. We have changed out 150, we're at 118 units now in Klamath Falls. And in Lakeview, we have expended about, well, we still have about $250,000 worth of funding available to us. We set aside a little bit of money for marketing because we needed to get the word out of, the new program, and it helped. We're at 85 completed projects. We have 15 inspections that are supposed to be happening this week, so we're at close to the target of 100, and we will just keep doing the program until the funds are gone. And we're really hoping that we can complete by our deadline of June 30th, because we are ready to move on to doing something different in our office. But that's basically where we're at now. I provided you with a graph that shows that approximately 30% of the new changeouts here in Lakeview were ductless heat pumps or mini split ductless. So a third of the folks went with electric and the heat pumps. A third went with propane services, or furnaces or propane inserts into fireplaces or propane stoves. And then another third have gone, or 30% have chosen to go with either wood stoves or wood stove inserts. So you have really reduced emissions. I analyzed this, and your emission reduction is close to 3 tons you've eliminated 3 tons of PM 2.5 with this program so far in this community, and that was through the end of December of 2016. I also included kind of the summary. This is, again, back on, this is the beginning March. We've added more. We're continually doing projects. I think I just signed off on about 8 weatherization invoices that we had received for projects here. So there have been quite a few weatherization projects. Most of it is insulation. WinR is doing well right now with, if you see their truck around, but they're putting in quite a bit of insulation into homes into this community, and doing, and we've also spent about, well, it shows here almost $20,000 in Start or Starts Electric on those programs. You do have only one vendor who is in the community who has chosen to work with us, and then Orleans is coming over and doing quite a bit of the work too. So, and Seasons Change also. So that's the program. I don't know, any other questions or information that I can hopefully have off the top of my head.
Eddie, you spoke of the 100 and some odd thousand that's still available for Lakeview. How long do you think that, or Lake County, I guess, but how long do you think the urban growth fund, how long do you think that those funds will be available?
We do not anticipate going beyond June of this year with funding. We figure that it'll, at the rate we're going, we're putting in, 8 to 10 new appliances here. In Klamath, we're basically only doing 1 or 2 a month because we don't want to overspend. So we're making sure that we're, phasing it in and spending those. So we can probably do another, maybe 10 projects in Klamath. And we have a waiting list over there. And we can probably do, including over and above the 15 that are already on the books, maybe another 20 here in Lakeview. So we have not identified any additional funding. We sometimes will receive funds from a fine that is put onto a business, and they are required, the state by DEQ, for some reason, someone in the industry, like we had some money a couple of years ago from Ash Grove, which is a business up north, that they were fined, I think it was like $84,000, and that money came to us and we used it for the wood stove program. So we do every once in a while get that kind of funding. I don't have anything else identified at this point in time, and we did request that some leftover funds from the state be put into the program, but we were denied that. So we do not have any more funding available through the state. So we're hoping that we have made a difference, enough to actually improve the air quality. We have seen that for sure in Klamath. We have done more, removed more in Klamath because of different funding pots that we've been able to access. So I was going to check and see. The census shows how many wood burning, how many people actually would burn wood, and I forgot to look that up for Lakeview to know kind of how many our target was altogether. I'm trying to work with, but I think with this program and the prior program, we probably are over 200 homes that we have removed the uncertified stoves from at least.
Under the PM2 plan that we're under now with DEQ and EPA, I guess the upgrades is what you would call them, the change outs that you've been conducting, have they been within the town's limits or in the urban growth boundary that was added when we went to PM2, 2 years ago?
Primarily, our work has been within the town limits. We've had a few projects out south of town that are just outside, but they're still in the urban growth boundary, but it's outside town limits, but very close in.
That's where, and we need that.
And that is where your
That's-
monitor is, and so, yeah, but
That's
I
what
would
I'm
say
saying.
most of them are just really
Within
within
the town proper?
the town proper.
Okay.
I know in Klamath, we actually had limited our program to 2 miles around the Peterson School, which is where their monitor is. And that is, we have found enough homeowners within that 2-mile radius to be able to, and Klamath has chosen to not put any new wood burning appliances in, and so everyone over there, but they have natural gas. And almost all of them have gone with a gas
And change out
appliance.
to natural gas. Well, the cost efficiency.
I know, it is. It's still a little more money,
Then
in the winter, but
versus
the
what's
comfort
available
level
here.
is so much more, and, and when you do the weatherization too, the homes are so much more comfortable. We do get thank yous occasionally from folks that just let us know that how pleased they are with everything.
Should we target a certain area of Lakeview?
I don't know if that's necessary, I mean, your whole,
I've heard stories.
I don't-
I don't know.
we've
We're
looked.
finding out as far as air quality measurements or
One
monitoring.
of the things, one of the other programs that I'm looking at, kind of, you know, when we run out of wood stove money, we have time to do something else in SCOA, is to look at some of the substandard housing issues in here and in Plymouth also. And I think some of the areas that have substandard housing, if we could do some housing rehab improvements, that would help too. I know you have some of those issues.
Oh,
I know the house next to the monitor, I know he has a pellet stove now. He does not have a wood stove.
Part of what we hope you will identify for us are those homes that we really should go after.
Well, that's
with
where our
especially if we've got a little bit of money
monitoring-
left, so, you know, we don't know that because we're not on site, but,
Yeah, definitely, we need to share that information with
our best targeting, market was through the realtors, and,
you. They knew what the conditions of each
Yeah.
home was and why
Yeah.
the selling point was what.
yeah, and so we've done a lot of rentals, which is good, because I think there were quite a few rental properties here that needed improvement.
Well, in the first round that we went through, Betty, that was not allowed. Rental
No, I
properties
know.
were not allowed, so.
But we did do it, with this round, we were able to
Yeah,
do that.
that's good. Good report.
Yeah, thank
Hopefully
you.
it makes a big difference with PM2 and
That is
DEQ
the
and
goal,
EPA
is
if they still exist.
we don't wanna shut industry down, so that's the goal.
But what you're saying is we have a limited amount of time to get the word out, so use up the rest of
Yes.
that money.
Yes.
We need to be doing that.
Yeah, make sure that people know that we're running out of funds, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. And
Okay, now
Drive safe. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Betty, for that information earlier
Oh,
in regards to CDBG.
yeah, and, you know, I'll follow up and get more information to Roberta, so maybe we can do or someone can come give a presentation on
That'd
it.
be great. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. One, the town cleanup.
Yes,
Karen?
yes, thank you. I'm Karen Bunch, I'm with the Lakeview Community Partnership, LCP. We're the Oregon Main Street organization, and we're the design committee, and our goal is town beautification and cleanup, and among other things. And I have some printouts of what I want to request, and maybe we'll just go through these together. Okay. Maybe you already have, I did send something
It's in
here
our
earlier.
package. Yeah, I think the same thing, isn't it?
It's I kind of changed it a little bit. First of all, I just want to back up and tell you about LCP. Our first Main Street program, or gathering of townspeople, back 2 years, maybe a little longer ago. And the one thing, we kind of broke into groups, and the one thing in my little group is that we've got to clean up the town. We want to clean up the entrances. And we all agree that, you know, tourists aside, we want this for ourselves. The residents want a nice town that they can enjoy with their friends and families, and so we realize that it is a big, it's gotten to be kind of a habit, I think, for certain residences to not care, you know, too much about, or maybe they need help to clean up their properties. And so, just the first paragraph tells you what we're doing. LCP requests partnering with the town council to plan for a much-needed town cleanup. LCP has funds in the amount of $2,000 to pay for dumpsters to be placed around town and possibly adjoining county properties on the entrances. The dumping fees will also be covered just for that particular purpose. So I wrote kind of a timeline that we will be working on, and I've done some of that already. And then to work with the town on the procedures, and And I put county commissioners because in the beginning I was going to go to them, but now they're doing their own thing. They've hired someone, an officer, to take care of the nuisances, and they've already sent out letters pertaining to their ideas of the cleanup. And I want them to know, and I'll tell them, that we will help with that too, if needed. But for this particular $2,000, we're hoping that it will be just the town and maybe the entrances to clean up, and some of the businesses as well as residences. So what we need is for the town council to identify properties that need to be cleaned up, and also to notify the owners and renters that, of the intention to provide the free dumpsters on certain dates, and that probably I'm looking at May or June now. And then to publish a press release announcing the opportunities for residential and business cleanup, and the placement of the dumpsters for their use. And we were awarded the $2,000 from the former DA. As you know, he was giving help to a lot of different groups. And his experience in Grants Pass, and he did this, and he said it was amazing, that it really did help. But he cautioned us, is that you need to have the town behind you. You can't do this on your own, because it'll work one time and then, it'll just be all back there. So I'm not sure, how, I did read some of your planning book, your planning periodicals or whatever they are, about what you guys are supposed to do and do. And I realize that this is part of your job. I also realize that Roberta's on LCP board now, and I realize your budget constraints about getting an officer hired by the town to do these things. But I don't see LCP going ahead with this project unless we have the town council behind us and in some sort of help to identify the properties, send out the letters. And I don't know,
That
that was,
procedure is done already. We do
Right.
have
Yes,
nuisance letters
Oh,
that
you
go
have?
out, and we follow that procedure, so I don't know what else we can do.
okay,
In regards to the community partnership and the cleanup of the town had this in place,
Uh-huh.
as you will recall, Sharon, each year. And the community partnership then increased it to where it included the outlying areas surrounding the entrances to our community, which needed to be cleaned up as well. We were, so we felt like, or I feel like we've been working with you from the get-go.
oh, good, okay.
So, and as far as the nuisance letters, I know they go out.
Well,
But I think,
For us to turn
I
those
hear
over to
you
you,
asking for something more, like,
Well,
you know,
enforcement, right,
we drive around town and every once in a while you'll see a place and go,
Right.
whoa, that's one of them.
right.
And it's not something maybe we've sent a letter on or something like that. Is that one of the
Yes,
things you want from
yes.
us? Is just,
Yes.
we get to be the Snoop sisters and go out and find these people?
But I don't think we can do that. I don't think that's right for our town or our employees to be able to do that, or even to think of doing that. There are complaints that we are enforcing in our ordinances that exist. Now, if you as a community partnership member want to go up to a certain household and tell
No,
them
we wouldn't.
you're beyond
No.
repair or
I don't feel-
something, that's fine, but I don't think our town should be
It's
doing
the
that
same
unless it is a nuisance level. If you identify those to our
I don't
community.
feel like that's our job to identify the properties. I think, from what I've read and
Well, see,
discussed,
that's not how we operate. What
Right.
we get are letters of complaint, like Frank has written a few,
okay,
and,
And he's got a response too from the
and,
town. The town has
and
done
he
some
has
things
written
to
his
respond
about,
to that, so.
yards that have not been mowed forever, and it create really a fire hazard. And so that's what we act upon, but as a rule, we don't go out and look for them ourselves.
so
But
But
that's
I
what
see
you're
where you're
asking.
saying, it needs to work together, and when we
Right.
reach a point to where it's time to clean up that property, we have to go through procedures in cleaning up properties. It has to reach a certain level, we go through our nuisance abatements and let those property owners know it's time now, or we will step in and do the procedures. And we do that. There have been numerous properties in our community that we've gone in, Jeff, you've cleaned them up yourself. And our
And then we
expense,
put-
and then we
Yeah.
put a lien on their property or whatever we can, if we can.
Mhm.
But we do that in our community, and I understand that you want us to work with you, but we already have things in place that we do those kind of ordinance. And yeah, we do need perhaps a nuisance officer that can
Yeah,
roll around, but
someone
I
to
think that if
enforce
we
that.
get some of the areas that are immediately surrounding our town proper, our community will be well thought of, in a lot better way than what we've got going now, so.
Okay, well, I guess part of what I'm getting at is that for an organization such as ours, we just can't really, we can't enforce that. We can't go to the doors and say,
Right.
clean up your yard. That's the town's responsibility. And I hear that you're doing it, and I know that Ray Sims acted on some, I remember talking to him about that. But, if we provide the dumpsters, you know, and have this big cleanup, that's fine, but then the next year, the year after, it's gonna continue, and so, I mean, the garbage and all that. So I'm talking about garbage sacks and rubbish and that kind of thing that is a hazard and that is a blight on the neighborhood. And as a resident of Lakeview, I think that we should be thought of too, in terms of what we want for our town. We don't want a trashy town. And I'm not saying have it landscaped pristine, I'm just saying get the garbage out of there. So that's why I'm asking for the town help. So if we go ahead with this and we publish the dumpsters, the free dumpsters and that, and I'm thinking I have $2,000, I've already met with Kevin at Lakeview Sanitation, and so we're kind of trying to figure out how many days money's worth we would have to do that. And also with Adair Brown and the dump fees. So it might be 2 days, it might be 3, it might be 1, I don't know. And the suggestion was that we put dumpsters around town in several different places. But Kevin's thinking maybe 2, maybe 3 at once, and then see what happens. So anyway, what we'd like is to have the town be behind us on this. And maybe, I know you have sent out letters to specific people, but I'm hearing that the county, what the county did was to send out letters to everyone.
Yeah.
And then tell them that this is what's happening here. This is what's happening with the county. We're gonna enforce this. And so,
Well, every one of our residents do get a water bill, and we
I
can
was just
certainly
thinking
include
that.
that in our
That would be
messages.
good.
A
And I, you
flyer
know,
of some kind.
yeah, that would be great. And I don't mean to, you know, I realize a lot of people can't do these things. And so there might be a way we could work with organizations that would help us. In fact, I'll have to get some people, some volunteers to monitor the dumpsters to make sure that, you know, refrigerators and that kind of stuff aren't put in there. So we will be doing that. But there might be some organizations, and I know I've heard people talk about this, to help those who are disabled, the elderly, to clean up their yards if they want. We did that last year. And, you know, we had a free dumpster day, 2 different dumpsters, and it was a big success. And that was free dumping, and people brought cut up trees and all kinds of brush, and that was early on. And so I think that they really did appreciate that. Again, we're looking at, no, not yard debris, but junk and garbage. And I think once we do that, I think the people will be appreciative. And maybe in the future we could, you know, continue it, I don't know. But the bottom line for us is to have the town behind us. And I'm not asking for money. It would be nice if we could hire somebody to do this, but I know that that's not possible. So, are there any questions about that particular thing, about the cleanup? I know you've given me input, so.
As far as the date?
I have not set dates because I wanted to hear from you guys first.
So I
So,
think we definitely can put flyers in the water bills.
Yeah,
Okay.
notes.
And that could be both an encouragement
right,
to clean up
Yeah.
and with a statement that says, and if you don't, and you're turned in as a nuisance, then it becomes a legal
right,
issue.
right,
Or to avoid it?
right.
Yeah, so you have a little kick in there.
Yeah.
I think so, I think that's great, I appreciate that. And I think that the residents will also, because I know that because we don't have a truck. So when we go to the dump, when we came here, we said, oh, we'll just, you know, have our garbage picked up. But we said, oh, well, you know, it's about time we start doing stuff for ourselves. But we don't have a truck, so we have to make it work. And so I know a lot of people are this, you know, they don't have the wherewithal or the capacity and the, you know, the energy to do these things, to clean things up. And maybe they can't afford garbage pickup. But anyway,
Erin, you brought up an important thing that I think that's probably everyone that's lives in a neighborhood has a sore spot in their neighborhood, and that is really kind of the way that our system is set up here. If there is an irritating property in your neighborhood, perhaps some of the neighborhood owners of properties could get together, go over and see if, as you said, that individual might be an elderly person, might
Right.
be in need of help to get it done, to get it accomplished, and offer that help. And that's self-policing, I
love
agree,
that.
but
Yeah.
that is what we're having to go through as it is now, because just as when someone turns in a complaint, we follow our procedures as our ordinances state we should, and we hope that they oblige what we're requesting them to do. But perhaps as friendly neighbors, we should all reach
I
out
agree. I
to
think that's
properties that
great.
irritate us, because that's really what it adds up to, is there are certain properties that irritate you in town, perhaps in your neighborhood or other areas, because like you say, they're our gateway to the community. And so it's important that we do clean up our community. And I think as far as a partnership, I think that Lakeview has always been behind you. As I said, we
Oh, I
kind of
agree.
stepped aside and let the community
agree.
partnership take over the cleanup that we did annually. So I think it's great that y'all have done it, and you did. I hate to hear the county is not participants in it now, because
Oh.
they are the gateway to our community. We are a certain boundary within our
Right.
community, and there are certain surroundings that need to be cleaned up, and we've been cleaning for a long time, and now what you've done with the partnership is kind of dismantled, because they're gonna do their own thing. And those people are not gonna feel like, well, they'll still use your dumpsters, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, well,
So, you know,
I
I
did
mean,
talk to
but-
Kevin about that, and I said, do I need to call McLeese to do the surround, the entrances, which is county? And he says, well, no, you don't, but I'm gonna talk to him about that more. And if we do need to ask McLeese to help, we will, and we'll certainly compensate them. But I just want you to know,
But-
last year, Kevin did this he did this complimentary, and so did Adair Brown, it was all complimentary.
And as far as Kevin, he can serve outside of our town boundaries too. He has no
Yeah,
limitations. He is our franchisee within the town's boundaries.
Right.
No one else can step in as long as we have that franchise
Right.
protection. But he can, and he does in North Lake.
Okay, well,
So
I
he
didn't,
can
he
still
said he
provide.
could handle it, I wasn't sure how that went, but, so, yeah, I agree with you with the neighborhood thing, but there are some places that I wouldn't want to even step in there, because there's just such, you know what I'm talking about, there's just garbage up the walls. We really, I think help is what, we need to help those people, but on the other hand, we need to let them know that this isn't the kind of town we wanna live in. And I'm not talking about, big city stuff, I'm talking about, enhancing what we have.
Well, and basically in some areas of this one that we were talking before about the, K Street, or was it? It was a health issue,
Yes.
a serious health issue, because they had so much garbage and so much debris that basically they were attacking every rodent in the county, and, hey, party here. And, so it becomes a health issue for some too. And the other thing about the elderly, and feel free to come and help me if you guys want to. I think sometimes with the junk that's around, it's almost a physical hazard, because
Yes.
everybody I know that is older, the thing that happens to them is a fall.
A fall.
And that's the beginning of the downhill slope.
Yeah.
So I think it's a health concern as well as anything else.
And
Well-being.
our plan is to have some help too. To help people if there's heavy items, like boards and that kind of thing. And instead have some trucks available to help people. So we've done this before on the yard cleanup, and so we kind of know what's expected or what's needed, let's put it that way. But I didn't see any point in going ahead with this without having the backing of the town. So I appreciate your input on that. And then, the other thing that I just wanted to bring to you was, the design committee, we're trying to do little things to get people's attention for LCP kind of cleaning up the town. So, we have this motto, lighter, quicker, cheaper projects. And so some of these we've talked about for the last 2 years in our committee meetings. But the one that we were talking about the other night was the planters. And Roberta didn't really know the history of the planting of the flowers and the watering of the flowers and all that. And so, but she said that the watering was gonna be a problem this year. So now, is this something that we can work as a project, or do you guys wanna take it again, or what?
You do not wanna get into the watering of those
No.
yourselves. I
But
mean,
what
you
about the
really
planting?
can. It's a disaster.
Planting
Well-
would be great.
You know,
I don't know.
I talked to Mike Beeson, he was talking to me about this too.
Oh,
And he feels that like on his block there, he'll take care of those planters. And
right.
businesses on the other block can take care of their planters. Each one of the businesses just take turn of taking care of the planters, because the city uses up about 2 hours a day of their time when they should be working on other
Yes.
projects.
Yeah, we talked about that. We talked about asking the businesses right outside your door, just have a gallon of water and, yeah, I think most of the businesses would do that. And we could monitor that and make sure that, it's done, and if it's not, we'll
And we
figure out
have
a
a
way.
budget set aside for the planting of, don't we?
I'm not positive on that, I'd have to look, I mean, I don't know, do we
It's
plant
been in
them
the
ourselves?
past.
We don't
No.
let them, we've always hired,
Bloomers.
to do it.
Well, somebody said that the school was doing starts, and then they,
I mean, I don't know.
The school has a horticultural
They're- right,
class,
and if they were
but
doing
they're not
starts-
gonna be planting all.
all of them, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there were so many when I looked.
Yeah, you start looking
Yeah,
at them.
yeah.
It's
And
a
I
it's a
would just say that we
liability
need-
too, going around the way we water those, is a liability.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Crazy.
And it takes so much water, we don't have anything else available. All we have is that, the sewer.
I've seen you guys
truck,
working.
To water.
And that's why I said that was supposed to be a temporary thing, and I come back 10 years later and you're still doing it.
Yeah,
Because that was just to finish out that
Oh,
season.
Wilkie knew it was gonna be his.
yeah,
He said,
So-
no matter what you think you're planning and how it's not going to affect
yeah.
the public works, it's gonna end up in their lap.
Well, and that's not fair. That's too expensive.
Well, but neither is, the other thing we don't want is people who say, I'm not gonna water the flowers, you planted them.
Well, I
And
don't
then they
think-
die,
I don't
and
think
we've
we
invested
want-
money and it's not true.
I don't think we want to have all kinds of, I mean, right now, we have planters that look uniform throughout our community. And the plants that are put in them are uniform. But if you have a store owner that takes care of this particular planter, look out. I mean, it's gonna
Well, I
turn into
think-
topsy-turvy, you won't have any uniformity in our community.
Oh, well, I'm not
So-
talking
Some
about,
won't do it.
I wasn't talking about having them plant them. I was talking
No,
about.
no, we understand
Yeah,
that, just the
so
care.
we need to find a source
watering.
to get the plants, and we've got a couple of ideas, and we would be asking for donations.
Well, I think the plants, they perhaps have been paid through the town, but
Uh-huh.
it may be through the horticulture department at the
somebody
school or
said
through
that.
Bloomers Country Nursery. They both have
Yeah.
worked on it in the past, so I don't know.
Well,
But,
Danae
we-
has the
Right.
class.
Yeah, that's,
But it may be, and I don't know why I think this is true, is that Bloomers gets the plants, gets everything,
That's what I was
plans it out, and then some of the kids come in
Help
and
out
help
on
plant,
getting it planted.
because there's a bunch of them, so, and they do it according, for part of their class.
Okay, so then I would check with Danae and the
See
school.
where, she's the person who can really tell you
Yeah,
how
okay.
it's been run
Okay.
before.
That's kind of what we kind of thought, that the school was doing something, and we didn't know if it was starts, the little plants starts,
Yeah.
or if she was doing it. And I know that, didn't Andy do it for a while too? Didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and so, now do you guys have, I guess I'll just ask, is there a budget to purchase the flowers, is that the way it's
Well,
been?
that's what she was saying, she has to check and see how that,
Okay.
how
We
that is
budgeted
run.
to
Yeah.
purchase them, but what I'm saying is that I don't think it's right that our public works waters
Has
them.
to
We need to
take
find
care
an
of it.
alternative to the watering, because you take a public works employee, they're already at this salary, so you double it or whatever with benefits, and you're looking at $40 an hour at least,
Yeah.
or whatever. And that's just.
And Public Works, as we have here, has plenty to do.
Yeah, we
So
got-
we either need to have, hire a part-time person to do it.
How about the person we have who takes care of the parks? Is
Well,
that
he's
some-
not, he may not come back.
Well, I know, but the
Yeah.
person,
Someone-
yeah,
someone should
unfortunately,
do it.
because he was
Someone should do it.
wonderful, but could there be somebody that could do the watering for the parks and this? But you have to have the vehicle that's got the
Right.
big tank and
Like
everything.
you say, that's the liability parking out the
Right.
street and the highway.
Well, we had discussed, talking
Yeah,
to
there's
the
ways.
merchants,
We
and
talked with
asking
parole
them
and
to do
probation
to
about the
water.
possibility of using people that have,
Community
time on their,
service.
Work
that they need
permits
to
or
work,
whatever.
work release or time that they need to get off their records. They may still be willing to do something like that too, but then you also have, I don't want them running one of my vehicles, then they've got the liability thing again.
Well, but they have a supervisor who handles those
Right,
projects.
and they have a vehicle.
But not on weekends a lot of time, right? Do they do it on weekends too? I mean, that's.
Well, we don't, we only
yeah.
do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Oh.
I was gonna say, you
Fend
don't
for
do
itself.
it every day.
Oh, my,
Yeah.
yes, you did, twice a week. Yes, a lot.
Ours are deeper.
It's not as hot. But anyway, I wanna look at alternatives for.
Okay, well, it sounds like maybe what I'd like to ask is if you maybe discuss this and then get back to us. And you can bring it to our meeting about what to do. And I don't think the planners will be even planted until probably the end of May or June, 1st of June. So we have some time to work on this. But I really think that we've asked, as you can see on here, we're asking the merchants to do a lot to beautify the town. And they should, I'm sorry, they should, because,
That's what makes
they're bringing
people stop at
customers
their
in.
stores.
Yes, yes, and so I don't see any, I have no problem asking them to help to do this. And maybe if there's an empty building here or there, somebody from this occupied building would walk down the street with a bucket of water and water them. I mean, I don't think that's too much to ask, but we'll see what happens. So I really appreciate your time and your feedback, and let me know what you decide on the planners then. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Okay, next item is the water line project bid notice.
And that's basically your information, I want to make sure you're aware of what's going on and what project it is. And that'll be the 22nd at whatever time, 2, I think. Whatever time it was.
2.
Yeah, so.
One thing that, and I just looked at the location, and since we just had the work session earlier, I just want to make this comment. When we move forward, we need to, with all of the water line and sewer line improvements, we need to keep in mind the deterioration of many of our streets in our community have been from our own cuts that we burst into the streets with, and so we need to make sure that we're staying on a chronological order of if we can. I know it's, hey, that water line went out, we gotta replace it now, but if possible, when we do any improvements that we talked about where there's an enormous amount of footage in the future or something, we need to make sure that.
That's it. I mean, most of the time it is, but I don't know.
Yeah, they repay it
Yeah.
after they,
Yeah.
always included.
These lift stations that you're speaking of, most of them on Ninth Street?
No, there's one on Ninth Street that just gets a new pump that we already purchased a few years ago because it started making noise and it was gonna wear out. So it's just install a pump in an existing location. It just requires a boom truck and a little bit of specialty expertise. And then the one on the corner of Third and S, South Third and S, it's getting a major rehab. And it was also rehabbed about 12 years ago, and it didn't hold up worth a darn. It was, I feel like it was put together with substandard, I mean, it's the most caustic environment that it can be in. The pipe should have been, it should have either been stainless steel, or it should have been, something that was
Precautions
really,
taken to make sure that,
super
yeah.
good coating on it, and it was just mild steel pipe, and in 12 years,
Here
it
we are.
rusted completely away. We have all the bolts that hold the floor. In 12 years, the thing looks like it's been on the bottom of the ocean for 100 years. So, and I expressed this concern with Daryl too, and he said, well, they'll do
Take that into
they'll-
consideration from here on.
yeah, put it in for whatever the best possible technology. I mean, the lid on the top of the thing is rotted away, the concrete is crumbling, you know, that kind of stuff should last longer than 12 years. It should be a, you know, it should be a 25-year project or a 30-year project.
Inferior products or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mayor council update. Mike, do you have anything?
I don't have anything, other than I will point out that I've received notices from the 911 community, or more so the ambulance providers of the county, who are having a meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at Paisley Community Center. And it's all the community ambulance providers from throughout the county, because of certain problems that exist in certain regions. They want you to talk it out, discuss. So, but as I think, as is the case with many things, volunteerism is lacking, and so that's
Are you
taking
planning
place
to
tomorrow.
go?
What's that?
Are you
And see-
going to that?
no, I'm not gonna be able to make it, Roberta.
So I think you're gonna go, right?
I was planning on it.
And Scott's going for sure, I know that, and I'm
Yeah, Dennis said,
considering it.
Dennis said it's got.
Sharon, do you have anything?
Well, UPIC is up and running again. They have a regular meeting schedule, and our next meeting is actually this Wednesday. It's tomorrow. And so I'll be able to go there and figure out what it is they're doing now, because I'm never really sure what it is they do. But it's made up of every organization or every agency that helps somebody. That's as near as I can get to it. So it's mental health, and it's like, I think even those lovely ladies that do the baskets for kids and things like that. I mean, so it's everybody who really helps somebody. And at least that's my understanding. And so I'll be there and I'll report back on that. Chamber of Commerce, as you may know, has hired a new director, Jessica Bogardus, and I have noticed such a big upswing in all the kinds of, Facebook. Our presence on Facebook is far stronger than it's ever been, and really working to get people and going out we've had several new memberships, and a lot of private memberships, which is kind of surprising. It's not just businesses, but people going in and saying, you know, I want to be a member. And so we're doing a happy little dance about that. So it seems to be going well, and so far anyway, we're hoping that. I need to call and make an appointment with Brad Winters, because I'm getting a lot of feedback on some serious railroad issues. And that really concerns me. If we were to lose our railroad, you could say goodbye to Collins, and you could probably say goodbye to Cornerstone.
Red Rock has.
And Red Rock,
as well.
Red Rock with, you know,
Because they're depending on.
oh yeah, well, Red Rock, it chose us for two things. We had that railroad, and we had the ability to get the natural gas to them. And so, if we lose that, we could be in trouble. But I honestly don't know. All I've heard is a lot of little rumblings, and so I called Brad, and we're gonna set a time where we can sit down and find out, because frankly, the Railroad Advisory Committee has not met on a regular basis for some time.
Yeah.
And
See, and Collins, one of the supervisors came to me about the railroad. And every time they have to dump chips on the ground, it's $10,000.
yeah,
So if they lose their chip contract, they'll go down.
yeah.
And that railroad is a big thing for them, because they haul a lot of chips out.
Well, and you just can't do it from our area financially. It's not viable to do the whole trucking thing. We truck a
No.
lot, but still, you know, this is your quickest and easiest way to go if it's running properly. And I don't know what's gone wrong, but I will be looking into that.
Now, see, I know when I worked down there, we could just about fill 3 cars in one day.
Wow, see, that's super. I mean, that's super for them.
That's on.
I
on
do know
for-
that there's
for-
been some discussion about Lake Rail wanting to raise their charges, and so, but you know, all of us feel that, don't we? I mean, everything everything you do is, you need more money to do it, so I can understand that, but I don't know what the issue is. And a reminder that this weekend is the Irish Days, and I think there's gonna be a whole lot of things going on. I'm working with the quilt show and the quilt documentation, that's kind of interesting, I'm looking forward to more, meeting those ladies. They're, anybody who has old quilts, or family quilts, they'll document them, and what we come up with, as I understand it, is, maybe it's on a DVD, but it's on the internet somehow. And so we'll have a section that is Lake County Historical Quilts with a story. These are, you're supposed to be able to say, this was my great-grandmother's, and you know, it's this, and however, but they want the stories as much as they want the quilts. So I think it's pretty exciting for us. A cultural coalition granted them, they asked for the money to bring the two women down from the state who are doing this and provide them with travel and meals and stuff. And so Cultural Coalition brought that about. And so if it's not on anything that they're putting out, I want you to know, we're the ones who did that. Well, sometimes Cultural Coalition doesn't get the thanks. You know, you do something, you give people money to do things with it, and you have to practically beat them. Huh?
No acknowledgement.
Yeah, no, and it's like, and then they also just sort of think, well, you've been giving us money for the last 5 years, you're gonna keep doing it forever, right? No, you haven't made a report. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but that, and there's the dinner Friday night, there's the pub crawl Saturday night. I don't know if you guys are gonna be there, but I will.
Are you? Are you?
Yeah, oh yeah, I've missed one pub crawl since you started. I don't go because the drinks are $5. I go because I see so many of my former students, and a lot of kids come back, and so I get to visit with them. It's like having a reunion, and I love it. Huh?
Yeah, some of them,
Yeah, I had to crawl, I leave before it gets.
I think Stacy said she had 118 last year.
Yeah, it was phenomenal, it's just fun.
I'm sorry, Sharon, go ahead
No, I'm
if you have
finished,
more.
shut me up.
I just wanted to go back to what I was mentioning a moment ago, and the reason that I brought the meeting, not because the counselors need to know, only because I feel we all should be interested in our ambulatory state, that we
Oh, I
have, we
think
may
it is.
anytime need ambulance service.
It's a wonderful part
But
of
I
ours.
want to point out the fact that ambulance service in our county, no matter what locale, whether it be in the town of Lakeview or elsewhere, falls under the obligations of the county. That is something that they are well aware of. There are certain entities, such as Lakeview Disaster, that has their own organization that funds themselves, and they have been housed in our service building down here free of charge for a number of years. So we've helped those services along the way, but they are all in different ways hurting in some regard or other, and I just wanted to make that a point. But the burden of ambulatory services in Oregon falls under each individual county, and so that was a meeting that I attended at the district hospital, who is looking at housing, perhaps disaster units at a new building they're thinking of, and perhaps wanting to heat. But those are all things that we should keep in mind, and let the county take care of due obligations as they should fall, and don't feel that the burden is upon us. So.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike. I have nothing to report, so I will go to that meeting tomorrow night. So if we have nothing else, then we will adjourn the meeting at 5:06. 5:06.
We don't have the executive session then. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.